Hello everybody and welcome to this latest episode of The Money Man, and today we're talking commemorative notes again. But before I start this video, I want to apologise for the really lengthy delay on this video. When I first conceived the idea of creating a video about this wonderful commemorative banknote that I'm going to feature today, I was at a really busy time in my life, and I did put something together that was substandard in my opinion, so I wanted to basically shelve this project and work on it a little bit more because I want to go into quite a lot of detail about this banknote because it's really interesting. And now finally I've got a little bit of time to do this banknote justice, so I just have to apologize for the delay on this one because many of you guys voted for this banknote to be featured in a video, so there we go. So without further ado, let's have a look at today's banknote, which is the absolutely gorgeous 75,000 Rupiah note issued by the Central Bank of Indonesia many months ago now, and here you can see it in all its glory. Now I must say that even a scan of this banknote doesn't really do its colour scheme justice. It is way more vibrant when you actually see a real banknote in front of your eyes. So if you have the opportunity to get hold of this banknote, I would highly recommend it because it is absolutely gorgeous. So what I'm going to do is have a look at some of the key features of this banknote. So first of all, what I want to direct your attention to is the national coat of arms that you can see in the top right of this wonderful banknote. And I've got to say, Indonesia, you guys have got a really cool coat of arms. So well done for that because it's absolutely fantastic. But of course, we have symbols of the nation on the banknote, which you would expect on all nations' banknotes. Now, just to the left of the national coat of arms, you can see our first prominent historical political character right here. This is Dr. Muhammad Hatta. Now, he was the first vice president of the modern-day Republic of Indonesia, and he's also known as the Proclamator. Now, the reason for that is because he was instrumental in the process of independence and proclaiming independence from Indonesia's former colonial master, the Dutch. So that's why the Central Bank of Indonesia have chosen to create this new 75,000 denomination, because this banknote celebrates 75 years of independence from Dutch colonial rule. So that's why you've got these prominent political figures on the front of the banknote that featured very heavily in that independence movement, and Dr. Muhammad Hatta was one of them. Now, he fought for independence from the Dutch for a very, very long time, and you've got to remember that, you know, this part of the world was known as the Dutch East Indies, and I will go into some detail as to how that status quo changed a little bit later on. But Dr. Muhammad Hatta was a prominent political figure in the independence movement, and he had a long, successful career after independence, and he actually died in March of 1980. Now, just to the left of Dr. Muhammad Hatta is another very prominent political figure in Indonesian history, and that is Dr. Sukarno. Now, Dr. Sukarno had a very fascinating life, and when I was putting together the research points for this video, there were so many things that I could have talked about because he's such a fascinating man, but I just want to focus on the context of the banknote. So I may, as a side project, do a video about Sukarno because his life is very, very interesting, especially his dealings with the Dutch, the British and the Americans, because the British and the Americans eventually led to his downfall. So he has a very interesting life story. But Dr. Sukarno is featured on this note because he was the first president of Indonesia from 1945 all the way up until 1967. He was a revolutionary, a nationalist and a great orator. And he was a seminal figure in the independence movement even before the Second World War, and he was actually put in prison by the Dutch authorities for an entire decade in the run-up to the Second World War. Now, the reason why he got out of prison was because the Japanese invaded East Asia. When they entered into the Second World War, when they attacked Pearl Harbor and invaded Hong Kong, they decided to sweep through all the areas that had been formerly occupied by the European colonial powers and the United States, and they basically kicked out the Western colonial authorities and absorbed all these different territories into their new empire. And it was during that time, after the Dutch had been kicked out of the Dutch East Indies, when the Japanese came in and they actually released Dr. Sukarno from prison. And that gave him his opportunity to galvanize his nationalist movement and bide his time and wait for an opportunity. Now, that opportunity to declare independence for Indonesia came in 1945 when the Japanese were defeated and they surrendered at the end of the Second World War. And what happened then was there was a power vacuum created in the Dutch East Indies. The Dutch were no longer there. So the time had come for Dr. Sukarno and his nationalists to announce independence, and that's exactly what they did. They took complete control of the country whilst the Dutch were still reeling from the beating that they took during the Second World War. Now, the Dutch did not give up. Although they could not reimpose themselves militarily, they did put significant diplomatic pressure on Indonesia to try and bring them back into the fold of the Dutch sphere of influence. But it didn't actually work. And in the end, Dr. Sukarno and his nationalists were victorious, and the Dutch even recognized Indonesian independence in 1949. So his life is a really, really interesting story, and I would highly recommend you guys looking into it if you are interested. Just to the left of Dr. Sukarno, you can actually see the first national flag hoisting in 1945, around that really important time of the Declaration of Independence of Indonesia. So a really historic moment captured on the banknote. Now, moving into more modern times, up to the current day, we have infrastructure projects which basically showcase the rising power of Indonesia economically. And you can see here we've got the Utafar Bridge in Papua, and just next to that we actually have the Jakarta MRT. So we're showcasing those infrastructure projects that have really helped to bring Indonesia together, because Indonesia has got a very challenging geography, and we will look at that in a moment. And I think looking at the geography and also the demography of Indonesia will help contextualize what is on the reverse of this banknote. So let's have a look at that map right now. Here we go. So you can see here we've got a geographical representation of the borders of Indonesia, and also we've got a breakdown of the ethnic makeup of the country. And you can see there are some really interesting points in this map. You can see Bali is dominated by Hindus, but then if we just move either side to West Nusa Tenggara or we go to East Java, those areas are dominated by Muslims. Now if we go further east to East Nusa Tenggara, we've got that area dominated by Christian Catholics. But if we move further north to North Sulawesi, you can see that this area is dominated by Christian Protestants. So you've got a very diverse mix of the major Abrahamic religions, and even you've got Hinduism thrown in there as well. Now that's not the end of the story. It's not only religious diversity which makes Indonesia very, very unique. You also find a great deal of ethnic differences between the populations as well, which can be challenging because we all know that sometimes differences can create frictions. So Dr. Sukarno had a really tough job on his hands holding this nation together, and it's quite a remarkable thing that Indonesia even today still continues to exist as a single unified nation. It is quite an incredible feat given the diversity of population that it actually has. So now we've contextualized some of that information, I think you guys will start to understand why the reverse of this banknote is actually extra special. So let's have a look at the reverse. Just before I tell you one more thing that's really interesting about Indonesia. Did you know that Indonesia has proposed moving its capital city? That's right. They want to move it from Jakarta all the way to the island of Borneo, and they're going to call this new city Nusantara, and this is a very, very controversial project. Now, something similar is happening in Egypt as well. They are also considering, or I should say they're in the process of moving their capital away from Cairo. Indonesia is doing the same thing, and it's a hugely controversial issue. So that's something to look out for. Maybe when it's finally done, we might get another commemorative banknote celebrating that momentous occasion, because moving or building a new capital city and moving to it is no small feat at all. So there we go. So that shows the rising aspirations of Indonesia. So let's have a look at the reverse of this wonderful banknote. You can see here that we've got a geographic representation of the map of Indonesia, just like I showed you, which shows that challenging geography because it is an archipelago. So many islands surrounded by sea. Very hard to keep these peoples together, but it's been achieved. Now, we can also see the rising power, the rising economic power of Indonesia through the technological achievements which are highlighted in this example here, which is the Rupiah satellite, which was put into space not too long ago. So that shows that Indonesia is focused on a thriving tech industry that they are developing to the point where they can even build satellites that can be launched into space. So that's quite impressive. Now, what I want you to really focus on is these 9 children down here, because this is where the demography really comes into play here. You've got 9 children in traditional costumes from 9 different regions, which I'm not going to insult by trying to say, but 9 different diverse regions of Indonesia. And you can see these children are proudly wearing their traditional dress, and they are all looking very happy, part of one nation, one Indonesia. I think this is very, very beautiful. It's a wonderful, wonderful image on the reverse of the note. There's so much cultural flavour in this image, and I really, really like it. And it goes with the colour scheme really, really nicely. You've got this sort of like photographic effect, which looks really cool. It's kind of like almost like a black and white photograph, but blended with the colour scheme of the banknote. I think that's really, really nice. It's got a really nice touch to it. So a very, very interesting banknote. Now, there is some text just at the bottom, and I've got a quick translation. It says, "By the grace of God, Unitary Republic of Indonesia issued Rupiah as a legal tender with the value of 75,000 Rupiah." And that's what it says at the bottom there. I think this is an incredible banknote. I wanted to go into a bit more detail because I think it deserves it, because it represents so much that is at the core of what Indonesia is as a nation, and I think it's just a beautiful representation of that country. I've never been there myself, but I would love to go, and this makes me want to collect more Indonesian banknotes. So this is actually the first one from Indonesia that I've ever collected. I'm hoping to get hold of a current series sometime in the near future, which I will feature on my channel. So let me know what you think about this one. Do you have it in your collection? Do you plan to get hold of it? Do you think it's a good banknote? Let me know. Of course, the current trend now is polymer, 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 polymer. I'm quite glad that there are still some countries out there, some central banks that are producing cotton paper notes, because it adds just a little bit more variety in the old collections. So thank you so much for watching this one. I apologise one more time for the delay. Please like and subscribe, it helps me out a lot, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon. It's the Money Man signing out for now. Bye bye.